mocked as the fat bride, until a little girl whispered, "She's beautiful, Papa," on the dusty planet of Sierra. 9, where the twin suns burned orange across the canyon cliffs, weddings were supposed to be a celebration. But for Leora Vallon, this day felt like walking into a storm. Her heart pounded like a wild star horse as she adjusted the folds of her silver cloak. It shimmered under the sunlight, reflecting not just the glow of the suns, but also the nervous hope in her eyes. The settlement, a cluster of wooden and metal structures patched together with solar panels and old spacecraft hulls, looked peaceful from a distance. But inside the small chapel built into the canyon wall, whispers and stares followed her like shadows. "She thinks she belongs here?" One villager muttered to another. "She's too different," another whispered, barely hiding a smirk. Leora felt their eyes on her, judging every curve, every breath, every hesitant step she took toward the altar. She had always been plump, always kind, always different, and in a town where survival often meant being tough and lean, being soft, being full of heart, had always drawn ridicule. Her hands shook slightly as she held her bouquet of mechanical wildflowers, delicate blooms that pulse softly with light, designed to survive the harsh frontier climate. She tried to focus on the flowers, on their gentle glow, but the voices in the chapel made her stomach tighten like coiled metal springs. Standing at the altar was Caleb Rourke, her soon-to-be husband, rugged and strong, as weathered as the canyon walls themselves. He had a quiet presence that commanded attention, but he never flaunted it. His sharp brown eyes softened when he saw her, and for a brief moment Leora felt like she could breathe without fear. She had met Caleb years ago when he had passed through Sierra, and on a bounty mission. Most people admired him from a distance, but he had noticed her in the crowded market one evening when she had shared her water ration with a stray starhound. That simple act had stayed with him, a light in the harsh world of dust and suns. Now, standing before him in her cloak, she felt the weight of every judgment the villagers had passed over the years. She was the fat bride, the one they whispered about, the one they mocked. And yet, Caleb's gaze told her something different. Courage, kindness, and love. The chapel doors creaked open, and in ran a small figure with golden hair that shimmered like sunlight on metal. Nina, Caleb's daughter from another world. The little girl had been quiet, watching, observing, and she had seen everything, every cruel glance and whispered word. "She's beautiful, Papa," Nina whispered, her voice so soft it barely carried across the chapel, yet somehow it cut through the room like a bell. Leora froze. Every word from every villager, every harsh glance and judgment seemed to fade into silence. She looked at Nina, and the little girl's wide, innocent eyes held no mockery, no fear, only truth. Caleb's lips twitched into a small, approving smile. He reached for her hand, and she grasped it tightly, feeling a wave of courage wash through her. Maybe, just maybe, she could survive this day, not because she was perfect, but because she was brave enough to walk through the judgment and keep her head high. The ceremony began, simple and quiet, with the soft hum of solar lanterns and the faint metallic creak of the chapel walls adjusting to the heat of the suns. The officiant, an old robot priest with glowing eyes and a soft mechanical voice, asked if anyone had objections. There was silence. The villagers, perhaps uncertain how to confront the honesty of the moment, dared not speak. As Caleb recited his vows, Leora felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. "I promise to walk with you through dust storms and starfields, through laughter and hardship," he said. "I will see you, always, for who you are." Leora's heart swelled. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Not mocked, not measured, but truly seen. And when she spoke her vows, she found her voice steady, clear, and strong. "I promise to stand beside you, to share every horizon and every sunrise, to love the man who sees me not for what I look like, but for the heart I carry." The little girl clapped softly, her tiny hands echoing in the chapel. A few of the villagers, perhaps moved by the sincerity, nodded quietly, their harsh whispers muted by the glow of honesty and courage. After the ceremony, Leora stepped outside into the bright light of the twin suns. The wind carried the scent of red dust and wild metal flowers, and the settlement seemed smaller somehow, less intimidating. Caleb lifted her hand and kissed it gently, and she laughed, the sound bright and pure, echoing across the canyon. "You were amazing," Caleb said softly. "You think so?" Leora asked, a little breathless. "I know so," he replied, eyes warm. Nina ran up and grabbed Leora's cloak. "She's beautiful, Papa, really beautiful," the girl insisted. Leora looked down at her, smiling, and felt a warmth that went deeper than any sunbeam.
The first time, she didn't care about the mocking whispers.
The day continued with small celebrations. Villagers brought solar fruits and glowing drinks, offering hesitant smiles. Children laughed, chasing miniature star horses that galloped over the canyon ledges. Leora laughed too, letting herself feel joy without fear. She was married now, not just to Caleb, but to a life where she could be herself, unashamed, unafraid. As evening fell, the twin suns dipping behind the canyon walls, Leora and Caleb climbed aboard the Dust Hawk, Caleb's star speeder, ready to leave the settlement for a brief honeymoon among the asteroid belts. Leora watched the canyon shrink beneath her, the settlement's whispers fading into the distance. She felt the thrill of space calling her name, the promise of adventure, and the gentle hand of love holding hers. The stars began to twinkle, cold and bright against the black sky. Leora leaned against Caleb, letting the hum of the speeder's engine fill the silence. "Do you think they'll ever stop judging me?" she asked quietly. Caleb shook his head. "Maybe not. But their opinions don't matter. You have your courage. You have your heart. That's what matters." And as Leora looked out at the vast universe unfolding before her, she realized he was right. Out there, beyond the dusty canyons and the judgment of a small town, she was free. Free to explore, free to learn, and free to be the woman she had always wanted to be. And somewhere far behind them, the little girl's whisper lingered, soft and unwavering. "She's beautiful." It was a small truth in a vast universe, but for Leora, it was everything. The Dust Hawk hummed softly as it lifted off the dusty cliffs of Sierra 9. Its engines glowed with a pale blue light, slicing through the thin atmosphere like a streak of hope across the twin suns. Leora Valen pressed her hands against the small viewport, watching the settlement shrink into a cluster of glowing squares and shadowed alleys. Every whisper, every judgment she had ever heard seemed distant now, replaced by the infinite stretch of space. Caleb Rourke sat in the pilot's seat, one hand steady on the controls, the other brushing lightly against hers. "Ready for your first real journey beyond the canyon?" he asked. His voice was calm, but there was a faint spark in his eyes, a promise of adventure. Leora nodded, a mix of excitement and nerves twisting in her stomach. I think so," she said, her voice soft. She had always dreamed of traveling, of seeing what lay beyond her small, dusty home, but she had never imagined the stars so close, so bright, so alive. Their course was set for the asteroid belt of Viridian. 3, a cluster of gleaming rocks and hidden craters rumored to hold rare minerals and uncharted ruins. Leora leaned back in her seat, letting the hum of the Dust Hawk's engine fill the cabin. The small spacecraft was cozy, just big enough for the three of them, Caleb, Leora, and a small cargo of supplies, yet it felt enormous compared to the narrow alleyways of Sierra 9. As they passed through the upper atmosphere, Leora noticed the faint shimmer of dust motes caught in the sun's fading light. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I never knew space could look like this." Caleb glanced at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Most people never do," he said. "They're too busy worrying about survival to look up and see the stars." Leora leaned closer, her face glowing in the cockpit's soft lights. "I want to see everything," she said. "I want to feel everything. I don't want to miss a single thing." The first day passed with gentle excitement. Leora helped Caleb adjust the navigation controls, learning how to read the star charts and pilot the speeder through asteroid fields. Her hands shook at first, but under Caleb's guidance, she began to feel confident. She laughed when the Dust Hawk jolted slightly to avoid a floating rock, and Caleb laughed with her, the sound echoing in the small cabin. That evening, as the sun set behind distant planets, the Dust Hawk floated quietly in orbit above a glowing asteroid. Leora watched the colors shift across the rock's surface, from molten gold to icy blue, like a living painting in motion. "Do you think we'll find anything interesting here?" she asked. Caleb shrugged, leaning back in his seat. "If we do, it'll be a surprise. That's the frontier for you, full of mysteries and unexpected moments. But that's why we explore." Leora felt a thrill at his words. Exploration meant freedom. Exploration meant courage. And most importantly, exploration meant she could define herself in ways no one on Sierra 9 had ever imagined. The next morning, while navigating a narrow asteroid corridor, the Dust Hawk's sensors picked up a faint signal. "That's strange," Caleb muttered, tapping a few holographic controls. "It's old, maybe abandoned, but someone, or something, left a trace." Leora leaned over, her curiosity sparking. "Can we check it out?" Caleb hesitated for only a moment. It's uncharted. Could be dangerous, but yeah, why not? Adventure doesn't wait. The speeder angled toward the signal, weaving carefully between massive, glittering asteroids. Leora held onto the railing, feeling the excitement pulse through her like electricity. The signal grew stronger until a small derelict spacecraft floated into view. Its hull was scarred and worn, metal panels missing in jagged patterns, yet its silhouette suggested a design both beautiful and ancient. Leora's eyes widened. It's incredible. Caleb nodded, scanning the exterior. Let's dock carefully. We don't know what we're dealing with. Inside the ship, dust drifted in beams of pale light from broken windows. Panels flickered faintly, and old holographic displays hummed to life as they entered. Leora's fingers brushed over the controls, curious despite the warning lights. One display showed a map, marking the location of an abandoned colony on a nearby asteroid cluster. Small notes flickered in code, hinting at exotic crystals and machinery left behind by explorers long gone. This is amazing, Leora breathed. Do you think anyone's been here in decades? Probably not, Caleb said. Which means we're the first to see it in a long time. He looked at her, impressed. You're not afraid of this, are you? Leora shook her head. No, I want to know what's here. I want to see it all. Their exploration was careful but exhilarating. Leora moved gracefully through the narrow corridors, noting the old signage and broken panels. Caleb followed, ready to intervene if anything went wrong, but he found himself letting her lead. Her curiosity, patience, and cleverness made her an unexpected guide in this forgotten place. As they reached the central chamber, Leora activated a terminal with trembling hands. The holographic display revealed a grid of tunnels and storage rooms, some marked as crystal reserves. The crystals glowed faintly, embedded in walls and containers. Their soft luminescence lit the room with colors shifting between purple, gold, and green. They're beautiful, Leora whispered, stepping closer. She reached out to touch one, and a soft hum vibrated through the chamber. They're alive, in a way. Caleb watched her, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. You've got the heart of an explorer, he said, and the courage to match it. Hours passed as they cataloged the crystals, mapping tunnels and noting potential hazards. Leora felt a sense of accomplishment she had never experienced back on Sierra. 9. Here, no one mocked her. Here, no one judged her size or her timid ways. Here, her mind, her courage, and her heart mattered most. That evening, floating above the asteroid and the dust hawk, Leora looked out at the endless stretch of stars. I feel like I'm really living, she said softly. Caleb reached for her hand. You are. And this is just the beginning. The frontier is full of places like that, places where people can shine, even if the world hasn't noticed them before. Leora smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. For the first time, the fears and whispers from her past felt like a distant echo. Out here, in the cold and bright universe, she could be herself completely. She could explore, learn, and grow. She could be brave, and she wasn't alone. Do you think Nina would like this place? She asked suddenly, thinking of the little girl who had given her courage in the chapel. Caleb chuckled. She'd love it. She'd probably run from tunnel to tunnel before we could stop her giggling the whole way. She's got your spirit, you know. Leora laughed, imagining the scene. A small voice whispering truth and courage, echoing through empty halls of a forgotten colony. It reminded her of that first day, when Nina had said the words that changed everything. She's beautiful. The next day brought new discoveries. While scanning a side corridor, Leora noticed a small hatch covered in dust. Using a combination of her careful hands and the ship's tools, she pried it open. Inside, a tiny garden of bioluminescent plants thrived, nurtured by old life support systems. Tiny flowers glowed blue and pink, casting soft light on the walls. This is like magic, Leora whispered, crouching to look closer. How did they keep this alive for so long? Caleb watched her fascination with quiet admiration. You see life where most people see dust, he said. That's why you're meant for this. You notice things, care about things, and that makes all the difference. Leora felt warmth bloom in her chest. Out here, away from judgment and scorn, she was growing stronger, braver, and more certain of herself. The stars stretched endlessly before her, and she knew that she could face them with courage. As the dust hawk prepared to leave the asteroid belt, Leora stood at the viewport, watching the glowing rocks recede into the distance. There's so much to see, she said.
Yes, Caleb replied.
and we'll see it all. Together. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the ship, in the sparkling glow of distant stars, Leora felt the truth that had started in a dusty canyon on Sierra 9. She was seen. She was valued. She was beautiful. Not just for her face or her figure, but for her courage, her heart, and her spirit. The frontier stretched before her, full of mysteries, adventures, and wonders. And Leora Valen, once mocked and whispered about, was ready to face it all. The abandoned colony sprawled across the asteroid like a sleeping giant. Its metal corridors twisted and turned under faint flickering lights, and every corner seemed to hum with secrets of the past. Leora Valen stepped cautiously behind Caleb Rourke as they entered the main hall. Dust floated in the air, sparkling like tiny stars in the dim light of the Dust Hawk's portable lamps. "This place is bigger than I thought," Leora whispered, her voice bouncing off the high ceilings. Her heart pounded in excitement. Every step was a step into the unknown. Caleb nodded. Abandoned colonies often have surprises. Some are dangerous, but some are incredible. That's why explorers like us exist. Leora smiled. "I like being an explorer." The words felt strange but wonderful on her tongue. They made her feel brave, alive, and free in a way she had never felt on Sierra 9. As they moved deeper into the colony, they noticed that old AI caretakers, robots once tasked with maintaining the station, were still functioning, though in strange, incomplete ways. Their lights blinked unevenly, and their mechanical voices emitted occasional static. "Who's there?" a thin robotic voice squeaked as one caretaker activated. It moved in circles, scanning the room. Caleb held up a hand to stop Leora from stepping forward too quickly. "Easy. These systems don't know if we're friendly. Let's approach slowly." Leora took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Hello," she said softly. "We mean no harm. We just want to explore." The robot paused, sensors focusing on her face. Then, with a faint buzz, it nodded and retreated to another corridor. Leora felt a thrill of triumph. She had faced her first challenge in the colony without fear, and her calm voice had convinced a machine to trust her. Caleb gave her a proud look. "You're handling this better than I expected?" Leora laughed, a soft, bright sound. "Better than I expected," she admitted. She felt a warm glow of confidence spreading through her chest. For the first time, she realized that being cautious and careful didn't make her weak. It made her smart. The map from the derelict ship showed several areas marked as crystal storage chambers. Leora's curiosity pulled her toward one of the closest ones. As they walked, she noticed faint scratches on the floor, signs that someone had been here before, long ago. "What do you think happened here?" she asked. Caleb shook his head. "Hard to say. Could be settlers, miners, or explorers. Some left because of resource shortages, others because of accidents. That's why we need to be careful." They reached the first crystal chamber. The walls glimmered with faintly glowing crystals embedded into the metal panels. Some pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, while others shone with steady light. Leora's eyes widened. "They're alive," she whispered. "I can feel it." Caleb stepped closer, examining the panels. "These crystals store energy, but the glow, it's more than power. It feels aware."
Leora moved between the columns of crystals, her hands hovering just above their surfaces. She could feel tiny vibrations.
Like whispers of energy. A thrill of discovery surged through her. She had never imagined she would be touching something so extraordinary, and yet she was calm and focused. Suddenly, one of the caretaker robots reappeared. Its sensors scanned the room aggressively, but Leora remembered what had worked before. She stepped forward slowly, speaking softly. "We only want to observe." "We will not take anything." The robot's lights blinked in confusion. After a tense moment, it retreated again. Leora exhaled. Caleb laughed softly. "You've got a gift," he said. "You connect with things, machines, people, even crystals. Like you understand them. That's rare." Leora felt a flush of pride. For years she had been mocked on Sierra. 9 for being soft, for being different, but here in the silent halls of a forgotten colony, her gentleness was strength. Her empathy, her patience, her heart, they made her brave. As they explored further, they found a small room with strange equipment. Holographic screens flickered to life, displaying old logs and messages. Leora leaned closer, fascinated. The logs showed that the colony had experimented with energy crystals, trying to harness their power to support life in the harsh asteroid environment. "These crystals could save worlds," she whispered, awestruck. "If they're used right, Caleb nodded. But they're delicate. Mishandled, they could fail. That's why the caretakers protect them. Leora studied the displays, trying to understand the patterns of energy flow. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing the information, connecting dots, imagining solutions. Caleb watched her, impressed. "You're brilliant," he said. "Not just brave, but clever, too." A sudden flicker of movement caught Leora's eye. A small corridor led to a storage chamber with a faint light blinking. She signaled to Caleb, and they approached cautiously. Inside, a cluster of crystals glowed softly, but the room was narrow, and the floors had collapsed in places. Caleb looked worried. "We need to be careful." "One wrong step—" "I can handle it," Leora interrupted. Her voice was steady. She analyzed the floor, noticing hidden supports and weak panels. Step by careful step, she led them across the dangerous floor. Every move was precise, every decision deliberate. When they reached the other side, she turned to Caleb, smiling. "You did it," he said. "I wasn't sure you'd manage that." "I did," she said simply, and for the first time she truly believed it. After hours of careful exploration, Leora and Caleb returned to the Dust Hawk. The small spacecraft felt comforting, like a safe harbor after a day of challenges. Leora looked at Caleb. Today, I really felt strong," she said quietly. "You are strong," Caleb replied. "Not just physically. Your courage, your mind, your heart, they make you one of the bravest people I know." Leora smiled, feeling warmth flood her chest. For so long she had been mocked, whispered about, judged for her size, for her appearance, for being different. Here, she realized that courage and intelligence were what truly mattered. Her body, her shape, had nothing to do with it. That night, as the Dust Hawk floated among the sparkling asteroid fields, Leora gazed out at the stars. "Do you think Nina would like it here?" she asked. Caleb chuckled. "She'd love it. She'd explore every tunnel, touch every crystal, ask 100 questions, and still find a way to surprise you." Leora laughed softly. "I hope she comes with us one day." She leaned back, letting the gentle hum of the spacecraft fill the silence. As she drifted towards sleep, she remembered the chapel on Sierra. 9, the whispers, the judgment, and that one small voice that had changed everything. She's beautiful. Now she understood that beauty was not about what others saw. It was about courage. It was about heart. It was about facing challenges with kindness, intelligence, and determination. And in the vast frontier of stars among abandoned colonies and glowing crystals, Leora Valen felt something she had never felt before. Complete, unshakable confidence in herself. The universe was full of unknowns, full of dangers and wonders alike, but she had learned something important. No matter where she went, no matter what she faced, she was capable. She could navigate the challenges, solve the puzzles, and face the fears, all while staying true to herself. And the frontier, endless and sparkling, promised more adventures than she could ever imagine. Leora closed her eyes, letting sleep carry her gently, while the stars outside the Dust Hawk shone brightly, guiding her toward a future full of promise, courage, and discovery. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring new mysteries, new challenges, and new chances to prove her heart and mind. And she was ready. The Dust Hawk glided through the asteroid belt with quiet grace. Leora Valen stood at the viewport, her hands pressed lightly against the cool metal. The glowing crystals from the abandoned colony faded behind them, their soft hum lingering in her memory. She took a deep breath, feeling the calmness that only space could bring. The stars stretched endlessly before her, and for the first time, she felt completely at peace. Caleb Rourke leaned against the doorway, watching her. "You've changed," he said softly. "I can see it in the way you carry yourself." Leora smiled. I've always wanted to be brave. I just didn't know I could." "You can," Caleb said. "And now you know. That's all that matters." For weeks they had explored the colony, mapped the crystal chambers, and even discovered a few hidden rooms with forgotten tools and supplies. Leora had led the way more than once, solving mechanical puzzles, navigating collapsed corridors, and even calming the old caretaker robots. Each success made her more confident, more aware of her own abilities. She no longer doubted herself or waited for validation. Their journey back to Sierra 9 was quiet but full of reflection. Leora spent hours gazing at the stars, thinking about the chapel, the whispers, and the little girl's voice that had changed everything. "She's beautiful, Papa," Nina had said. At the time, it was a simple truth that had stunned her. Now, after seeing abandoned colonies, solving complex problems and navigating the unknown, Leora understood its depth. Beauty was courage. Beauty was heart. Beauty was the strength to face fear and still move forward. When the dust hawk finally touched down on the canyon cliffs of Sierra, 9, the settlement looked smaller than she remembered. The twin suns were dipping behind the cliffs, painting the town in shades of gold and rose. Leora stepped out, feeling the dust crunch beneath her boots, and for the first time the eyes of the villagers did not make her shrink. Some of them watched curiously as she and Caleb carried supplies from the dust hawk. Others whispered, but this time the tone was different. There was respect, a recognition that the bride they had mocked was now someone who had faced the stars and returned stronger than before. Leora spotted Nina running toward her, hair shining in the sunlight. The little girl threw her arms around Leora's waist, squealing with excitement. "You're back! Did you see the crystals? Did you fly past the stars? Was it scary?" Leora laughed and hugged her tightly. "It was amazing, Nina, and yes, a little scary, but I learned that I can handle more than I ever thought." Nina's eyes sparkled. "Papa told me you were brave," she said, looking up at Leora. "But you're even braver than I imagined." Caleb's chest swelled with pride as he watched the two of them together. "And you've earned it," he said softly. "All of it." The villagers gathered slowly around them. Some had been skeptical when they saw Leora walking beside Caleb, and some still remembered the whispers. But as they listened to her recount her adventures, how she solved problems, navigated the abandoned colony, and even spoke calmly to the caretaker robots, they began to see her in a new light. She was no longer just the fat bride, or the one who was different. She was a hero of the frontier, clever, courageous, and full of heart. An elder woman stepped forward, her voice shaking slightly. "Leora, we judged you unfairly. We thought you didn't belong. But you've shown us what truly matters. You've shown us courage, kindness, and wisdom. We are proud of you." Leora felt warmth rush through her. "Thank you," she said. I just wanted to live, to explore, and to be myself. I didn't want to be anyone else's idea of perfect." The elder smiled. "And that is the true beauty." That evening, the settlement gathered for a quiet celebration. Children ran through the streets, chasing small star horses, laughter echoing across the canyon. Holographic lanterns floated above, casting soft glows on the walls. Leora watched the twin suns set, feeling a deep peace she had never known. Caleb stood beside her, his hand finding hers. "You see," he said quietly, "you've changed not just yourself, but everyone around you. Your courage has inspired." Leora looked at the horizon, thinking of the abandoned colony, the glowing crystals, and the stars they had traveled through. "I never knew I could do so much," she admitted. "I always thought maybe I wasn't strong enough. Maybe I wasn't beautiful enough." Caleb shook his head gently. "You were always beautiful, not because of how you looked, but because of who you are." That little girl said it first, and I've known it all along. Now everyone else can see it too. Leora smiled, remembering Nina's words. "She's beautiful, Papa." They had carried her through dark corridors, across collapsing floors, and through the vast unknown of space. They had reminded her that courage, kindness, and heart were the true measure of beauty. The next morning, Leora walked through the settlement, greeted by smiles and nods from people who had once whispered. Children waved, imitating her movements as she had demonstrated in the colony. Farmers offered freshly harvested solar fruits, and even the town's leaders came to speak with her. One young girl approached shyly, holding out a small mechanical flower. I saw what you did," she whispered. "You're amazing." Leora knelt down, taking the flower carefully. "Thank you," she said, her eyes shining. "You can be amazing too. You just have to believe in yourself." The girl's eyes widened, and she ran off to share Leora's words with her friends. The cycle of courage, kindness, and inspiration had begun to spread. Caleb watched silently, proud and quiet. "You've made the frontier better," he said. Leora turned to him, her eyes soft but determined. "No, we've made it better. Together." By the time the twin suns fully set, the canyon glowed in soft twilight. Leora stood at the edge, looking at the horizon, imagining the infinite stars beyond. She had once been mocked, whispered about, and underestimated. Now, she had traveled through the unknown, solved puzzles no one else could, and returned stronger, braver, and more certain of her worth than ever. And she knew, with a certainty that filled her heart, she was beautiful, not because anyone had declared it, but because she had faced fear, embraced adventure, and stayed true to herself. That night, as she sat in the dust hawk, preparing for the next journey, she felt a small hand slip into hers. Nina climbed onto the seat beside her, her eyes wide and sparkling. "You're coming with me next time, right?" Nina asked. "Of course," Leora said, squeezing her hand. "We'll explore together. You'll see the stars, just like I did." Nina smiled and whispered, "I always knew you were beautiful." Leora laughed softly, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. The little girl's words were not just a memory now. They were a promise of hope, courage, and endless adventure.